Welcome to this meeting of the Babergh Planning Committee. I will now ask the Governance Officer to read out the domestic arrangements. Claire, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any member of the public attending the meeting objects to being filmed, please advise us immediately. We'll ensure that they are not included in the filming. Members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you are intending to do so, please could you inform me now? No? May I please request that mobile phones are on silent or switched off and that your laptops are switched to silent. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point at Ipswich Town Football Ground. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. Introductions. Stephen Stroud, Acting Chief Planning Officer. Case Officer Jasmine Wyard. Legal Advisor Ian Dupre. Joining us at 10 o'clock is Ben Chester from Suffolk Transport, and we also have the ward member present, Councillor Davis. Apologies for absence and substitutions, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Peter Beer and Councillor Catherine Grandon, and Councillor Mary McLaren is substituting for Catherine Grandon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable and non-registrable interests by members. Councillor Maybury.
Thank you. This is historic. Hello. This is historic. My sister's marital family were instructors at Ganges. I don't know if that needs to be declared, but I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else to declare, anyone? No. Declarations of lobbying. Councillor Dowling.
Thank you, Chair. I suspect it's true for all of us. We received an email from the Clerk of Shotley Parish Council on Tuesday regarding this case.
What you're going to bring to our attention, was it, Margaret?
Yes, it was.
Was.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can I confirm that everybody had that email? Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Declarations of personal site visits. Councillor Davis. You peered into the gate on Monday. You don't think that's any problem? No. Okay. Any other? No. Right. Moving on. BPL 2419. Confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on 16th of April. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? No? In that case, can I have a proposer, please, to accept the minutes? Councillor Osborne. A seconder? Councillor Register. The Government Officer will now conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Holt, can I take your vote? You're online. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 8 votes for and 2 abstentions. That's carried.
Thank you. To receive notification petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Site inspections. No. Thank you very much. Moving on to BPL 24/20. Schedule of planning applications. We have before us DC 2304-109, former HMS Ganges site, Shotley Gate, Shotley, Suffolk. I will now invite the Case Officer Jasmine to introduce the application to the committee. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. I'm presenting a Section 73 application today to vary the approved plans on permission B/12/00500 on the former HMS Ganges site in Shotley. Members are reminded that this presentation is intended to provide an overview of the development and should be understood in conjunction with the committee report and tabled paper. Turning to the planning history, the site was a former naval training base and was later used as a police training college before remaining vacant and inaccessible to the public for over 22 years. In 2015, planning permission to redevelop the site was granted under B/12/00500. Permission was granted for the full and partial demolition of buildings associated with the redevelopment of the site in order to provide dwellings, specialist older persons accommodation, flexible uses ranging from retail, cafe, office, gym, clinic and indoor recreation, hotel, boarding or guest house, museum, library or exhibition halls, community uses, landscaping and lighting. This permission was implemented and phase 1 is nearly complete. To address the number of representations received expressing concerns with the use of a Section 73 application, a Section 73 application is an application for planning permission. The difference between a Section 73 and a normal full planning application is that a Section 73 seeks to amend an extant permission by varying or removing a condition imposed on the original permission. This application seeks to make a number of changes and adopt a different approach to the redevelopment of the site. A number of representations suggest that the use of a Section 73 application is not a legitimate approach, considering the number of changes involved. As set out within the committee report and having taken legal advice from counsel, officers are comfortable that this is a legitimate approach. There is no limit on the number of changes that can be sought under a Section 73 application. Whilst officers do not consider that the proposed changes are fundamentally different to the extant permission, fundamental changes are nevertheless permitted under Section 73, so long as they are consistent with the operative part of the permission, which is the description. Members should recall from the committee site visit last year that this is just to remind everyone of where the site is. As you can see, it sits at the tip of the Shotley Peninsula. This aerial map adds further context to the site. To the west are the main residential areas within Shotley Gate, and to the east is Shotley Marina. In terms of constraints on the site is outside of the settlement boundary and is therefore considered countryside. The site is also outside of, but adjacent to the Suffolk coast and heaths area of outstanding natural beauty, but is within the project area. So just to zoom in on the constraints so you can see a little bit clearer, there are several listed buildings and ancient monuments, which I'll discuss in more detail on the next slide, and several protected trees scattered across the site, which are the green kind of dots. In terms of heritage assets, the whole site falls within the Shotley Gate Conservation Area. The orange stars indicate Grade 2 listed buildings. These include the swimming pool building, South Martello Tower, the mast and listed gates. Outside of the site is also Grade 2 listed North Martello Tower. The swimming pool has actually since been listed since the grant of the original permission. The purple stars show ancient monuments, which include the 2 Martello Towers and subterranean air raid shelters and the Shotley Battery. The yellow stars show non-designated heritage assets that are specifically relevant to the application that we're looking at today. So some of the buildings without stars were considered non-designated heritage assets, but others were not. Importantly, however, the buildings without stars have either already been demolished or have permission to be demolished under the extant permission. There would be a total loss of some additional non-designated heritage assets, and a very low to low level of less than substantial harm has been identified to designated heritage assets, which must be weighed against public benefits and in the overall planning balance. In terms of demolition works, this shows the extent of demolition both consented and proposed alongside the retention of buildings. So the filled in pink are additional demolition works now proposed. The outlined pink areas are buildings that have already got consent to be demolished, and the orange are buildings to be retained. All non-designated heritage assets, except for Vincent House, Nelson Hall and Faith, Hope and Charity Steps, are to be demolished if not already consented for demolition. In terms of the site layout, the application seeks the erection of 303 dwellings, erection of a new build retail unit, a hotel with 6 suites, erection of 75 self-contained care units, leisure, community and commercial uses within repurposed buildings and areas of landscaping. So the next 2 slides are videos moving around the site to just show how the development would materialise in context. This video is just to run through the site along the spine road, so moving from north to south. The following 3 slides provide aerial views of the site from different perspectives. This slide looks at the site from an eastern direction. This view is taken from the southeastern angle. This is the central community area on the site, showing the parade ground, Vincent House, swimming pool, Nelson Hall, the mast and new retail unit. There is care provision to the left and dwellings to the bottom and right of the screen. There are 9 character areas proposed, responding to key site characteristics in and around the site and heritage assets. These areas inform the design, layout and landscaping approaches adopted and aid a sense of place around the site. The majority of built form is 2-storey, however there are single-storey elements including garages, Nelson Hall, the retail building and parts of the swimming pool building. Some 3-storey elements proposed, including the care units and some dwellings to the boundaries of the site. The proposed landscaping scheme utilises existing landscaping across the site, including protected trees, and adds to this using native species. Different surface materials are used around the site on private drives, shared surfaces and pedestrian footpaths to improve legibility. There would be several formal and informal play areas scattered across the site, and key areas of open space would be a mixture of lawn, amenity grass and wildflower meadow. There will also be a large variation in boundary treatments across the site, again aiding a sense of place. Close bordered fencing is used in private facing areas to further improve the design. A large proportion of the internal estate roads would be adopted, with small areas shown in blue being the private drives. A vehicular link between the Ganges site and Shotley Marina was proposed under the extant permission to provide a bus loop and emergency access. A 2015 application permitted Shotley Marina to occupy dwellings on their development without the need for this link into the Ganges site, having first been delivered, following earlier upgrades that were made to King Edward VII Drive. The Ganges site has safe access to the north of the site, connecting into the recently constructed roundabout, and would also have an alternative emergency access onto Caledonia Road. The existing bus route would continue to run and follow the same route it currently does. All occupants would be within walking distance of bus stops to utilise the existing service. It is clear from the previous permission granted at Shotley Marina and assessing the purpose of the link in relation to the Ganges site that both sites can be safely occupied independently of one another. A condition is nonetheless proposed to support a potential pedestrian and cycle link between the 2 sites. This shows where the spine road would terminate to the southern part of the site. As you can see, a pedestrian cycle link could connect onto the end of the spine road and travel down to the boundary of the site. These are the listed gates, which then provide the location of the emergency access onto Caledonia Road. Here is a selection of house types across the development. The dwellings are informed by the character areas, and differences across the site are expressed through a mix of orientation, materials, forms and features, including porches, chimneys, bay windows. Except for the materials, the K units would all appear the same externally, and the elevations would appear largely the same on both sides, front and back, reflecting uniformity and forms of existing buildings on the site. The following slides show different areas of the site up close. This image is looking eastwards with the K units of the centre in the centre and left of the screen, and the parade ground, including the swimming pool and Vincent House on the right. This is moving further eastwards with the North Martello Tower in the background outside of the site and dwellings between the K units and boundary of the site. To the right is an area of open space and the site of the Shotley Battery. Looking at the central parade ground, you can see the retail unit on the right-hand side, central open space and the swimming pool building and Vincent House to the top. Again, this is looking at the parade ground, but looking to the west with Nelson Hall on the right and Vincent House and the swimming pool building to the top. Moving round, this is looking through the parade ground to the southern side of the site with the mast at the top. And then moving closer to that, there is a visual line between the mast and the southern Martello Tower in the background, with dwellings positioned to either side of the area between the mast and Martello Tower. Then looking at the southern Martello Tower, you can see how dwellings are positioned to retain the tower as the focus within the area. The following slides will show elevations of the central buildings around the parade ground. Nelson Hall could provide co-working, cafe, recreation, community or museum space and would be refurbished with some new openings. Vincent House would provide hotel suites and would remain largely intact with only a few new openings proposed. The swimming pool building would provide space for recreation, community use or other Class E uses. This would be refurbished rather than left untouched as under the extant permission, and all works to it are subject to a separate listed building consent. The proposed new retail unit would adopt a sympathetic appearance, utilising materials and forms that are reflective of other buildings within the parade ground area. The recommendation is therefore to grant planning permission in accordance with the committee report. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jasmine. Now I can see you with the lights on. Any questions for the officer? We'll start with Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Chair. On the maps, towards the southern end of the site, there's a little area marked in red that's obviously not part of the site. What is that and why is it not included? Thank you.
It's an area that was excluded from the original planning permission. I believe it's to do with land ownership matters, but that might be something to clarify with the applicant.
Okay. Councillor Holt?
Yeah, section 73. Heard the officer's comments, reading online, and I'm not a planner. It does seem this goes a little bit out of the scope that it illustrates online. Certainly the scope, application focused on the conditions of the original mission, not the overall scope of the development itself. This to me is changing the overall development itself. Doesn't sit entirely comfortably with me that this is under a section 73. I'd like a bit more detail and what conditions actually we are referring to. It mentions 27. We've got no evidence of 27, whatever that means, whatever that was in the original planning application and permission. And what other things in this paper today are conditions, what are out, what are not conditions, because when you look online on the government site, it's fairly clear with a little bit of flexibility of what you can bring in and bring out. We seem to be stretching it extremely one way and not the other way, so can we have some more detail, because I'm not comfortable at the moment.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So if you are looking on the government website in terms of what you can and can't do under Section 73, I would imagine that you're looking at the PPG, and that was only updated in July 2023, so it hasn't followed recent case law updates. What I also would say is that we have got counsel advice. Both sides, us and the applicant, have sought counsel advice on this very point. Officers are comfortable, our legal advisors are comfortable that this can be dealt with via Section 73. In terms of the variation of conditions, we're looking to vary Condition 27, which is the approved plans condition. So the approved plans condition essentially is this development shall be carried out in accordance with the list of approved plans. So we're looking to update what those plans are. The development description is the key operative part of the planning permission, and that's not conflicted with in any way. Although there are a number of changes involved, as I've said, those changes, you can make fundamental changes under a Section 73. That has been very recently proven through case law. We're not suggesting that these are fundamental changes. It is just offering a different approach to the redevelopment of the site, which does include slightly different configurations, numbers and uses in various areas.
Can I be of any assistance if I add something there, Chair? So, I mean, just to go back to first principles, and I agree totally, Jasmine's got it exactly right. And as she says, the PPG, the wording of the PPG, I think that will need to be adjusted. I think everybody in the planning profession is of that view. Section 73 says, as Jasmine says, a permission to develop the land but remove or modify a condition to the existing planning permission. So full permissions, like the one we're dealing with, let's make it something much simpler than this, a full planning permission for one house. It will have, if it's a full permission rather than outline, it will have a standard plans condition. Ours plans condition is 27 here, isn't it? So, but imagine a full planning permission for a house. The plans, it will say it must be built in accordance with the plans and drawings referred to with reference numbers so-and-so and so-and-so, which will be easily identifiable. So that might illustrate good morning, Ben, yes. That will illustrate, the plans may illustrate a large dwelling on the north side of a site with the south side being the garden, and it may be of traditional design. If you make you can then make a Section 73 application that says remove drawings A, B and C and instead put D, E and F in their place, and instead we have, what did I say large? We could have a small dwelling with a not very traditional design in the middle of the site with the rest of the site as the garden, and that would be perfectly lawful. There's been some legal uncertainty, as Jasmine said, of recent case law, but the case of Fisk that went to the Court of Appeal at the end of last year has clarified that you can do whatever you like under a Section 73, as long as it can honestly be said it's altering the conditions, not the operative part, the description of development. So the example I've just used, it's a very different house, but it's still a permission for one house on the same site. So in this case, we have a development, a full permission, then we had a non-material amendment to the permission. Now, a non-material amendment can alter the operative part of development as long as it does so in a way that's non-material. And in this case, we were quite satisfied, having taken advice, not from me, it was from another lawyer, but I agree with it, that the non-material amendment was sound and it has not been subject to any legal challenge. So what we now have is a Section 73 application to change the plans condition, it will change the plans, it will change the conditions that identify those plans, condition 27, but it does not change the operative part of the development. So, yeah, on that basis, I'm quite content, and I hope that helps a bit.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Holt, do you want another question?
Well, it's just comments really. You're removing a spine road, you're changing the number of houses, you're demolishing historic buildings. Surely that's a fundamental change in its plan permission. And to be covered under a very convenient condition number 27, which seems to cover everything from what you're saying, and gives you an open book to change whatever you want, sort of puts into question why we bother making plan permissions in the first place if they can come back and just change everything at a committee stage some several years later.
Just to add, well, my advice is, and the council who advised us before I came anywhere near this, we are we're quite content that this. What I'm saying is it is a lawful application to do this for the reasons I've given. Whether the planning merits of the application are a matter for the decision maker, in this case your committee. So, but it is a lawful application that's been properly validated. But I think Jasmine may wish to add a bit more, but there was a specified number of houses in the full permission. That's right, isn't it, Jasmine? Was it 28? I'm just looking back. It was a number, wasn't it?
Yes, and it's since been altered.
It's been altered to say dwellings generally, hasn't it? Not a specific number. That was a non-material amendment that, as I said, has occurred lawfully, has not been challenged. So we now look at the plans which we're being asked to alter with reference to that description, and in that context it is quite proper and lawful in my view. But do add, Jasmine, if you need to.
I think just to come back on the point that you raised about fundamental changes being made, as I've said, fundamental changes, we don't believe them to be fundamental, and for the reasons set out in 4.20 of the committee report, I explain how it is consistent with the operative part of the planning permission. Having said that, even if they were considered to be fundamental changes, you can do that under a Section 73 application. And I think what I would reiterate at this point is that a Section 73 application is an application for planning permission. So although we are looking to vary a condition of that relating to the approved plans, that doesn't mean that we are not reassessing the development in a whole range of new reports were submitted and updated reports. It's not just simply an amendment. It is, you can see from when this application was submitted in 2023, this isn't a quick route to gaining planning permission.
Thank you, Jasmine. Councillor Maybury, you were asking a question?
Yes, thank you. Some of my questions have already been answered. Thank you. Could we have a look at slide 17 and then 20, please? Thank you. My question on here is, apart from it went too quickly, so I couldn't see it, my question is, why have we got some things, why are they all in different colours?
They are in different colours to show you where the different character areas are. So the the letters that are shown on there, if you see down the left-hand side, it shows you what those character areas are. I believe I've set out within the committee report, bear with me, I'm not sure which point it is.
No, don't worry, that is absolutely fine. And can you confirm whether or not there are now any affordable housing or social housing on there?
Yeah.
Well, Councillor Maybury, the straightforward answer is that there is no affordable housing provision or contribution being secured under this application, because we've got policies that deal with development viability, and as set out within the infrastructure section of the report, the viability position of this scheme is such that it cannot provide affordable housing. Whether that affordable housing could be secured by some other means outside of the planning process, for example through grant funding, that is an opportunity. That might be a question to put to the applicants.
Can I come back, please, on that?
Yes.
on, I've just lost the thread of that. We're talking about affordable. Yes, viability. Who has deemed that the viability denotes that we cannot have any affordable, please? Who has decreed that?
It is an external company called Urba, who we work with on a number of sites and in a number of appeals. They're independent, they're credible and highly competent, and they've given an independent review of the viability position presented to us by the applicant. So it's not a case of being presented to us and it's been signed off. There was quite a lot of back and forth. I think, as you will see from the report that's been presented by Urba, they felt that in some respects there was disagreement, but nevertheless, overall, the scheme was still found to be unviable.
Thank you. And slide 20, please. What does that mean? It's difficult to see, and what does exactly mean? I mean, what are the materials? Are they recycled? Are they natural? What are they, please?
So, in terms of the boundary treatments, I believe, again, can't find the specific paragraph, but there is mention of it in the committee report. Different boundary treatments across the site. So you've got high post and rail chain fences, knee rail timber fences, post and rail timber fences, acoustic timber fences, brick walls, close boarded fencing, high brick walls, and steel railings. The idea is, and as I've spoken about the character areas, different areas and different public-facing aspects of the site will be treated and have different boundary treatments. I don't believe any of that is recycled, but that might be something to ask the applicant. But the idea is to kind of, again, to aid that sense of place, help, I suppose, demarcate where people are to walk. It's to aid kind of that sense of place.
Thank you. I will ask the applicant later on, if I may, Chairman, because my fear is...
Councillor Babergh, can I ask you to save that for when you ask the question?
Okay, I'll let somebody else go, but I've got...
Thank you. Councillor Holt, carry on.
Could you run through the deferred payment options, please, that you didn't mention but are in the reports? That there seems to be several deferred payments that rely on profitability before they can be paid, including 3 billion, I think, for housing. If it's not viable, what's the likelihood of us receiving a penny of that? Because, you know, if something isn't viable to build out, and we're discussing it because of viability, those deferred payments are pretty much non-existent, aren't they, and will never come forward?
Well, yes, is the answer, but proper planning is such that you will have a mechanism in there to ensure that the viability is reviewed at appropriate milestones and towards the end of development to see whether the world has become a better place. And if it has, then there's an opportunity to put that surplus towards meeting the infrastructural deficit that would arise. So, you know, very upfront about it, it's an unviable scheme, and that's one of the things that you've got to balance as a decision taker here, that there is a likelihood that some contributions will not be met, but weighing against that is the delivery of the site and trying to see something happen.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, Councillor Davis?
I was still staring at a couple of other councillors. It's around traffic. On page 48.14, it mentions a traffic impact assessment, but this seems to have been done in 2015 and we're now in 2025. And just from my own personal observation, traffic volumes in the area as a whole have changed substantially in that time. Why hasn't another one been done?
In short, it has. So I believe there should be another point. So I think it was carried out Ben, you might be able to recall. I think it was 2023.
Yes.
So there's been an update on the traffic assessment that was previously carried out, and the 2015 or anything earlier would be related to the original permission. So it's effectively updating that. And I believe that there was mention. I think it is in here somewhere. And it's also in the tabled papers as well. Ben, you want to?
2023 application, there was a transport statement submitted that set out the highways impact of this amended scheme compared to the previous permitted development.
And what was said impact assessed as?
It was almost the same. I think there was a slight increase in one peak hour, but a slight reduction in the other peak hour. So the overall impact is very similar to the previous scheme.
Okay, thank you. Can I follow on?
Go on.
Different questions. It's around health provision. How many local surgeries are nearby that are easily accessible by the development?
I'm actually not sure on that point.
Okay, I'll follow up if the parish council are here and speak, or maybe the ward representative. Thank you.
Said SCC don't seem to have budged one iota on their financial commitments to this project, and yet Babergh seem to be letting things rest on pure viability and profitability. And the other thing, the highways assessment, it seems to me that what we're getting from county now, and perhaps we can get some clarification, is that with this working at home model that's been introduced into their assessments, any previous assessments will always be different, and their model has changed such a large amount that any previous assessment is going to be invalid, because it will always now show lesser movements, or not lesser movements, but we require to hit a threshold lesser movements being projected. Is that right?
Well, I can answer the first part. I'll pass over to Mr. Chester. But I think it's an unfair correct characterisation to suggest that the county haven't budged one iota and we somehow have given in. We have a policy that expressly deals with affordable housing and viability. This is a similar approach that was taken with the extant permission. So in that sense, actually, it's entirely consistent. In respect of the county payments, again, they're payments that were already being made under the first scheme. The scheme remains unviable, but nevertheless, the applicant has said that they will pay them. There's actually no real difference between the extant permission and the proposed application here in respect of district obligations. The treatment of affordable housing is exactly the same, and we're still getting the ecological payment. So that's not necessarily the correct picture.
Councillor Register.
As I understand it, they've replaced a vehicular access to Shotley Marina with a proposed cycle and pedestrian route. I can't remember which slide it was, it looked like that was offset so that the pedestrian route only matched up with the pavement on the, I suppose, what was intended to be the path, the road from Shotley Marina up into the development. So the question is, and then I looked at, so what standards is this done? And it's using the, a standard from 2000. That's clearly been superseded by other standards since then, including LTN 120, even LTN 208, because if it's a pedestrian cycle path, and it's replaced by the 2008 shared path design standard and the Urban Mobility Code of Conduct and various other standards. So how wide is this path, and why is it offset so much? And does that, it just seems to me silly.
Alicia, would you be able to get the slides back up? I think it'd be useful just to have a little look. There we go. So this is, in terms of the vehicular link that was removed, as I've mentioned, this was relating to the relationship between both sites, and Suffolk County Council Highways are content that actually both sites, and officers are content, that both sites can function separately. The idea of this is that it is conditioned, so the specific details of width, connectivity, how, surfacing materials are all part of a condition. We don't have the details of that right now. This is aligned with the original permission in terms of the red line plan and the area, the issues with land ownership matters, which is something that you might want to speak to ask of the applicant. But I believe, Ben, I don't know if you wanted to come in on kind of...
Yeah, in terms of the design standards for the linkage, it hasn't been sort of submitted at this stage, so we would expect the applicant to provide a link that in accord to current standards.
But that means that, so what it looks to me like is, even if you end up with the path coming from the development is, suppose it's done to the best standard, best practice, which is a 3 metre segregated path, cycle path, and a footpath of 2.5 metres, is going to narrow down to what looks like 2 metres on the pavement, which just seems silly. So we haven't got the details on that.
We don't have the details of the link. It's been conditioned, so the applicant would have to submit the details to be agreed.
I think just to add to that, in terms of where it then links into, that's completely outside of the application boundary. So all of that element to the southern part is, I believe, within the marina's ownership.
Thank you, Chair. Jasmine, I'm interested in the 75 extra care units. I'm not sure what that means. Could you explain that to me? And would that be subject to national regulation?
So the CT units are specialist older persons accommodation, so they are extra care units. I believe the definition is quite flexible in what that means in terms of specific care needs. It may well be a question to ask the applicant in terms of who will be taking those on and how they will be managed. But the idea is that it is it's controlled. So I believe it was either conditioned or within the Section 106 that it will be provided and secured as the specialist older persons accommodation.
Okay. I've just got another short question, Chair, thank you. Given that there's 75, so if it's extra care, that means people could be going in that are quite, perhaps not physically mobile, but mobile with the cars. It also means that there will be extra cars coming in from carers, perhaps visiting and supporting those people. Have we allowed in the car parking, I don't know how many car parking spaces there are, but are there enough to manage what is going to be a lot of traffic? Thank you.
Yes, the site generally accords with our parking standards, and the trip generation figures it include all the uses on the site, so the houses and the other uses as well. I don't have the figures to hand, but I can quickly look and find out.
Councillor Wyman.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking through the notes, there's a point from the Public Health and Communities people saying they object on the basis of the light touch associated with the health impact assessment, and talking to Councillor Davis's point on the infrastructure issue. We've already had a commitment from the applicant under Section 106, but there's a balancing payment due. Will this? But there isn't a lot of context around how they will use that money and whether they will put that money into local surgery or whether it goes back into the general health budget.
Are we, just to clarify, are we talking about NHS England? Yeah. So the money that they have requested, they're not allowed to use it for, I believe it's capital, it's called capital fund, gap funding. So in effect, it can't be used to fund new doctors or that sort of element to it, the kind of service provision. It would have to be used for infrastructure. So it would be potentially a new surgery or something to that effect. But it certainly can't be used to support NHS staff or recruitment in that sense.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Thank you very much. To come back to this cycle pedestrian area that Councillor Register was commenting about, this is my first question. Can you confirm that we absolutely have no control over this, and it's going to be another scenario like Chiltern Woods when we didn't get the woodland because we didn't have the ownership of that land? Is that what you're saying? No control?
So we've proposed a condition. It's possible that the applicant can go up to their boundary. I think what we're trying to say is that beyond that, so where it terminates, we have no control over that because it's outside of the applicant's ownership. I believe that you notice on the Shotley Marina side to the south, where that is shown, where there's a link there, that hasn't been built out yet. So it's possible that the two landowners may work together, but that's probably something to ask the applicant about, providing that continuous link through.
Okay, so as I thought. There is quite a lot of opposition from the police authority. What are we doing about that, please?
What I think we have to remember is that there is an extant permission. So the police, they'd kind of design out crime elements. They do routinely provide comments on how things can be less fenced off, more open, or indeed to help with lighting and various elements. What we do find is that often these aspects actually conflict with statutory consultee requirements. So having everything lit up is often not something that the landscape team or ecology are happy with. I don't believe that there's a particularly strong issue with the design and layout in terms of preventing crime. I think that's an element that the police would have to enforce if there are ongoing issues. But I think what we need to remember is that there is an extant permission, and I don't believe that this is any worse than the extant permission for how it's laid out and how it would, I suppose, facilitate any crime.
Thank you. I'll comment later. I have another question. May I?
Can I get
yes, someone else, that's fine.
And I'll come back to you. Councillor Carruthers, you were keen.
Thank you, Chair. It's a quick question again about vehicle access. The emergency vehicle access is going to be on Caledonia Road. where the gates are. Does that mean that the gates are going to be permanently open? No.
So the idea is that it's solely an emergency access, it's not a secondary access. So it might be something to ask the applicant, but I believe that there are to be kind of bollards there, and it's just opened when necessary.
Okay, it's just as long as, I was just thinking if they have to get out with a key, you know, and it's a fire or something, that might be...
I think management-wise, probably worth asking the applicant how that would be delivered.
Councillor Holt?
Yeah, could officers please explain the difference in the S106 and the conditions? Because there's some crossover between the S106, I would suggest, and the condition that we're looking at. Does the S106 will, if there is any crossover, get changed with this condition? Because that's a legal document. So I'm looking at the wording of the care home in the S106, and it seems to me in the paper that sort of contradicts what's in the signed agreement. So what do we do about that? Is there a conflict?
So routinely with the Section 73, it's what's called a deed of variation. So there is an updated Section 106 agreement that will ensure that it ties up any of those loose ends and any potential differences that arise from the approved plans.
Councillor Maybury, you would like to get your next question in?
Yes, but that comment has just sparked another question. Could we have confirmation of the heights of the 3-storey buildings in relation to the heritage buildings that are being retained, please?
Lisa, could you go back again, sorry? So if I quickly show you. So in terms of the 3-storey or 2.5-storey houses, the one in the top left-hand corner is what would be along kind of the boundaries of the site. You then have the kind of 3-storey, these are the care units. And if turning to here, you can see, so the Vincent House, which I'm hoping this is going to work, there we go. So that is 3 stories, and the care units are 3 stories. This then goes down to, you've then got single-storey element here. Nelson Hall is single-storey, but high. It's a high building. If I then move on, you can kind of see there.
Yes, but Jasmine, I was actually asking for the meterage of them, please.
I don't have that to hand, but I can find out for you.
And then my last question is, a deed of variation, so I understand, and my legal expert over there, we have lots of conversations, will confirm this with me. The cost, who is funding the cost of this deed of variation, which we've just been commented about? Because I understand that that's more expensive than having a planning permission.
It will be the applicant that funds and covers the legal costs.
Councillor Holt?
My colleague just mentioned the police. I mean, I think it's, we've got a page and a half here of reasons that they raise. And one, which is Q, is the open design of the C2 care units. It's concerning as it opens up the area to easy access and access to parked vehicles. So that's quite specific. It's not just a general phrasing. But we have a page and a half here of objections, basically, from the police, which is off the website. So it's a bit of a concern. We don't normally see that many.
That was a question, of course, wasn't it?
Being mitigated. The open design of the C2 care units. If it's a care unit, to me, it should be. We should ensure that it's quite secure, and the police should be happy with its location.
I think in terms of the care units and where they are, I think what we have to remember is that, again, there is an extant permission. We can possibly have a look and condition something to the effect of maybe reviewing some of that detail, if that's something that members want to do.
can we ask that question of the applicant? Jasmine, do we think the applicant would be better placed to answer the...
Yes, I think that might be a useful place to ask.
So, thank you. Question.
Always. Was there a new environmental impact assessment for this? As it's Section 73 and it's changed quite substantially. I believe that is something that can be done and should be done, but there is leeway again so that we don't have to.
I can confirm it has been done. It's an updated environmental statement. So again, I can't remember which section of the report, but it is covered within the committee report. And just to confirm, that has been independently assessed.
Thank you. No more questions? No.
Would it be possible to have a comfort break? I've been here since very first thing. Thank you.
The case officer. At Councillor Maybury's request, we will have a 10-minute break. And so we'll see you back here at 22. And please do not discuss this outside the meeting. Everyone. Thank you. I may manage to miss a question from one member. Councillor Osborne, would you ask your question?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question that needs clarification. I can remember the sites visits we've had, and several, and I've been on them all. There was a identification of a blast site. Does the blast site from Felixstowe go on to any of the development that you're proposing? That's just clarification, really.
I'd need to double check for you. But again, what I would say is this already has got planning permission. There is an extant planning permission for development on this site. So it's sort of a point that we just need to remember that it has already got permission, so there will be buildings on this site.
Memory, anyway.
I'd need to look into that for you and come back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. Excellent presentation.
In that case, we'll move on. We have public speakers. I understand our first person is Parish Council of Shotley, and it's Councillor Rinch. Sir, you have 3 minutes to address the Planning Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the committee. Shotley Parish Council strongly objects to this Section 73 application. We have supported the principle of the development of HMS Ganges from the beginning and have engaged extensively with the developer and planning officers over many years. Notwithstanding the officers' assertions, the recent Court of Appeal judgment in the Test Valley Borough Council versus Fisk 2024 makes clear that Section 73 cannot be used to fundamentally alter the nature of a planning permission. We have referenced this case in our written submissions, and we believe it applies directly here. One of the most serious issues is the proposed removal of the spine road. The originally approved scheme included a through vehicular route linking the site to King Edward VII Drive. We do not believe there are genuine land ownership constraints preventing the delivery of the spine road. From our discussions, the issue appears to be cost, not feasibility, and figures suggest it could be delivered for around £30,000. Without that link, traffic from the development will continue to place undue pressure on Bristol Hill and the homes along King Edward VII Drive, where a through route would have eased congestion and improved flow across the site. We are also further concerned by the loss of heritage assets. While we are pleased to see the mast repaired and reinstated, other significant historic buildings are now proposed for demolition or conversion. The changes to the care provisions are also considerable. What was once a single care home is now proposed as 5 separate blocks of extra care apartments, with the overall floor space almost doubling from 4,500 to 9,000 square metres. These changes materially increase the likelihood of extra vehicle use. The increase to 303 dwellings also moves the development closer to the previously rejected 325 dwelling scheme. We also remain opposed to the removal of the £40,000 swimming pool contribution, which had previously been agreed with the Parish Council and should be retained for community benefit. Lastly, we are deeply concerned by the formal objections from Suffolk Constabulary. Their officer raised serious concerns about the site layout, permeability, and failure to apply secure by design principles. These concerns go to the heart of the community safety and should not be ignored. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to wait a moment, we'll see whether you have any questions. Any questions for the Parish Council? Councillor Ryman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Inch. Could you just comment? You mentioned the point. Obviously, the link road is a really important point for, I think, for everybody. But you alluded to the point that it was available potentially at £30,000. I mean, is that a factual?
I took advice from somebody who has got a highways licence, a council licence to do roadworks, and he sent me an estimate for 50 metres, I don't know the exact length, 50 metres of two-carriageway highway to county council standards, which came to fractionally sub £30,000.
Well, sorry. But the land ownership issue. I mean, I assume from the text of the paper that the land ownership is with Marina Developments and/or Towcast 2 or Limited.
Correct.
So are they minded to sell the land then?
I have been verbally told that they have no problem with a road being built over that surface.
Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Yeah, the Spine Road, you mentioned the King Edward VII Road, or the school, or whatever. Has there been improvements in that area that can mitigate the fact that the Spine Road won't be, or isn't planned to be, built?
I don't consider there have been any changes at all since the original application. Basically, the Spine Road was for the connectivity to the marina through the new development, which would allow significant proportion of traffic that presently goes down Bristol Hill and along King Edward VII Drive to now go the more direct route through a wide boulevard, modern roads down to the marina.
You mentioned the £40,000 that should be coming your way that you think no longer is. How was that agreement put in place?
This agreement historically was from significant discussions we had over the fate of the swimming pool, and it was an agreed sum for the parish council to use for the benefit of the community and look at the possibilities of swimming pool. Now that has changed in a way in that the swimming pool is now being refurbished in with the S73. It's also a listed building, but its other part of that was for community benefit.
Well, am I able to ask the officer if he can clarify that? Because I can see here in an S106 agreement, contribution for the swimming pool definition is deleted and a new definition inserted, contribution in lieu of a swimming pool, means the sum of £40,000 to be paid by Hayling to the District Council, who are obliged to pass on to Shotley Parish Council. Is that still valid? If so, are the Parish Council aware of it?
So if we're granting a new planning permission, we need to make sure that any obligation meets the SIL tests. So the £40,000 that was for a feasibility study is no longer required because the swimming pool building is being put to a use, and that's being secured under the application. The notion of putting a figure towards an unspecified community use leads to some concern, because how is that linked to the development, bearing in mind your obligations under SIL 122?
So what you're saying is 4.22p6 in the S106 agreement is irrelevant now?
Well, we're granting a new planning permission where we need to look at the obligations that are going to be relevant and necessary and proportionate at this stage.
So that's a yes?
Well, you're the decision taker, Councillor Holt, so if you feel that it meets the SIL 122 test, then you can ask that the recommendation be amended.
I'm not the sole decision maker.
Okay, let's get back to our public speaker. Any more questions? Councillor Maybury.
Thank you very much for coming today. My question relates to the police authority, and I have seen the questions or the comments from the police authority. Do you currently have significant concerns within Shotley from a police point of view? I.e., do you have a lot of criminal intent?
Personally, no, but I don't happen to live down at that end of the village, so I'm not fully aware of day-to-day problems there. There are always a level of youth problems in all communities which come and go. I believe at this moment, although there are people who, one of the gentlemen sitting here who can speak, lives down at what we call the wet end, and he may be more aware of any present problems, but we don't see the police.
Thank you, and I apologise for my poor wording there. Chairman, could we have the gentleman from the wet end speak? The wet end of the parish speak?
Shotley Gate. Peter,
or not?
Don't want to be awkward and pedantic, but so we've heard from the parish council. I mean, is it so? The issue is that there's an answer from someone else here who the speaker can't answer the question. But I think we're getting into slightly muddy waters, I'm afraid there.
So it's been overridden. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Holt? Oh, sorry, not you. Councillor Davis first, sorry.
Thank you. My question is around the health provision in Shotley. Where are your nearest local surgeries? Do you feel they are overburdened? Do they have room for expansion? And also, following up, are there any existing care homes in Shotley? Sorry, that's several.
Simplest one, no care homes in Shotley. The nearest home is in Wolverston. There is a single practice on the peninsula, the Holbrook and Shotley practice. There are 2 surgeries at Holbrook and Shotley. As far as I'm aware, they suffer from exactly the same problem of all other surgeries at the moment. There is a shortage of doctors, there is a shortage of appointments, and if you listen to village chatter, there are a lot of complaints about the capabilities of the practice and surgeries to manage any increase of people from any development.
Thank you.
Councillor Holt, you want to?
Yeah, one of your first things you mentioned was the S73. Obviously, it's interesting what you say because it sort of contradicts what our officers are telling us. So what basis did you get your legal reference from? And would you like just to confirm that what you're saying is that you believe that this application doesn't come under an S73?
I am not legally trained myself. Luckily, we have got somebody on the parish council who is legally trained, and this is where the reading of the S73 against the court case at the Court of Appeal has come from. Therefore, it has come from a legally trained mind. As I understand it, the court found in that case part of it was correct and part of it was wrong. And it's all to do with the... I don't think it's scale is not the right term. It's I'm trying to remember exactly what the comment was. Fundamentally alter the nature of the planning permission. We believe the extent of the various changes fundamentally alter, as much as anything, with two parts of it, the spine road and the care home provision. We believe they fundamentally alter the nature of the original permission.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much indeed. We now have a second speaker, Councillor Simon Pearce from Wolverston. Sir, you have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you. Wolverston Parish Council has sought to have the committee defer consideration of this planning application to reassess the transport report presented as part of the application and Suffolk County Council's response to it, and the officer's inclusion of inaccurate information in her report to the committee. It was interesting to note that you have a supplement that arrived this morning into your pack, which tries to return to or retake some of the errors that are already in this report. As this data is critical to the decision-making process, any decision should be deferred until it's clarified, we believe. I've written twice to the planning department and received no response. This is a material consideration in respect to the application before you. If a decision is made here today on flawed data and the basis of the recommendation in an officer's report which contains verifiable mistakes, Babergh District Council will lay itself open to a legal challenge. A transport report should be accurate. The conclusions as presented cannot be justified as the data is flawed. The facts are these. Suffolk County Council requested a fresh traffic survey in October 23. Waterman conducted a traffic survey on the B1456 in Wolverston from Sunday the 29th of October to Saturday the 4th of November 2023 and presented their findings to Suffolk. Ipswich High School was on half-term holiday from Sunday the 22nd of October to Sunday the 5th of November 2023, which covered a week that period. The data collected does not reflect the significant impact of traffic flows contributed by Ipswich High School through Wolverston. And just to give you a quick rough idea, in 2020, 73% of children arrived at the school by bus, which leaves 27% arriving by car, 135 approximately students with 4 trips in, out, equals 540 trips a day, with staff at 50 times 2, 100 trips a day, visitors and supplies 30 times 2, 60 a day, adds up to roughly 700 vehicle trips a day through Wolverston associated with Ipswich High School. On Thursday the 2nd of November, if you look at the transport report, it shows there's a 2,000 vehicle shortfall from the weekday average, 4,216 instead of a weekday average of 6,256. This is clearly not a representative day. This data has been presented to Suffolk County Council with conclusions that traffic flows on the B1456 are actually going down, which is clearly not the case. Suffolk County Council accepted the findings of the transport report and the conclusions. The planning officer in her report states the 2023 term dates for both state and independent schools in the area have been checked, and it has been confirmed that the assessment was not carried out during any school holiday, such that the movements are typical of the area. And we claim that they're just not the case and that the officer was wrong in that statement. These mistakes cannot play a material part in the reasoning of committee members.
Stop. Any questions for the Speaker? No? Thank you. Councillor Home.
So in your opinion, the transport assessment is flawed?
Yep.
But we have, again, evidence from officers and county to say that it was perfectly adequate. And you mentioned about, I think, agenda item 8A, the late letter that was submitted, confirming the school holidays, which you had previously mentioned, I believe, did actually happen. You mentioned also that on one particular day there was 2,000 vehicle movements less. You're basing that on what?
I have the transport report figures in front of me. You have them in the application documentation. On Thursday, the 2nd of November 2023, the 24-hour flow is 4,216, whereas if you look at the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday average, that's 3,256. So something happened on that day which is not typical of the road. And sorry.
Good morning. I was going to talk on 3 areas of harm, which, as you are councillors elected by the communities, it is your job to make sure that any approved development does not cause harm to the communities that elected you. However, in view of the discussion and the lack of clarity in the officer's response, I will limit my comments to the following. The Suffolk highways 10 years ago identified the hazard to both pedestrians and vehicles at the bottom of Bristol Hill, the only turning place for the existing bus service. Nothing has changed. All the buses, including the school buses, have to reverse into oncoming traffic. The existing Section 106 agreement was put in place to mitigate this hazard in the form of the spine road. This would enable, as you've heard, a loop for the bus and eliminate the need to reverse at the bottom of Bristol Hill. There is no legal impediment to Hayling Limited constructing the spine road as set out in the existing Section 106. Furthermore, the development under construction at King Edward VII Drive has safeguarded the necessary area for the junction between the spine road and King Edward VII Drive. It will be forever on your conscience if you decide to scrap the existing Section 106, as the community will be at risk to the hazard of reversing buses almost every hour in perpetuity. Hayling Limited has allowed all designated heritage buildings to deteriorate. It's done nothing over the 10 years since accepting conditions for the original full planning permission. This was to make safe and conserve. The applicant proposes to demolish all buildings except Nelson Hall, Vincent and the swimming pool. This is wholesale demolition and detrimental to the heritage of the site. Of particular concern are the buildings Anson, Ganges and Admin adjacent to the listed main gates. The buildings, although not listed, have been designated as community assets. These buildings are immediately adjacent to the main gates and are an important part of the main gate's historic setting. In addition, the proposal to use Caledonian Road as an emergency access will destroy the whole point of preserving the gates. The gates will have to remain open in order to allow access once the movable bollards have been retracted to permit entry for emergency vehicles. Please keep the existing conditions and the main gates will be seen. Plus, neither will the residents nor the council taxpayers have to fund the cost of maintaining the emergency access, again, in perpetuity.
Thank you, sir. Your 3 minutes are up.
I recommend that you defer decision in view of all the...
Thank you. Has anyone got any questions? Thank you very much. The applicant, Mr. James Dickens. Sir, you have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Good morning and thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
The Ganges site holds extraordinary historical, emotional and architectural significance, and I want to begin by acknowledging how long the community has waited to see meaningful progress. For nearly 50 years, this site has faced viability challenges and false starts. That history hasn't been forgotten. It's what drives the care and commitment we bring to this project every day. Wavensmere Homes entered a joint venture with Galliard in 21, and our first priority was improving the Phase 1 design, which we achieved through a non-material amendment. These changes were not cosmetic. They represented a full rethink, focused on Suffolk vernacular architecture, NDSS compliance, and homes for everyone, from first-time buyers to downsizers. We broke ground in 22, making the first real progress in decades, and we remain fully committed to restoring the entire site. We also understand the emotional connection many of you have to this site, and that's why we restored the historic mast years ahead of any planning requirement. It was re-rigged in 24, and it stands as a proud symbol of the site's rebirth. Today, nearly 50 residents call Ganges home, but there's a lot more that we need to do. Importantly, we have now exchanged contracts with HSPG for 53 affordable homes across all phases. This is subject to Homes England funding, but it's crucial for home ownership affordability for this community. There has been some concern about the addition of 18 homes, but what's often missed is the total floor area has been reduced by over 40,000 feet. That means fewer people overall and fewer traffic movements, not more. We've also had concerns about removing the spine road, but its original purpose was simply to allow the bus and emergency access to the marina. Since then, King Edward VII Drive has been upgraded and it's worked well. Suffolk Highway support the revised layout, which still provides a full bus loop. On section 73, we have taken extensive legal advice from several top planning barristers who confirm the approach is entirely sound, and the revised scheme remains consistent with the approved description of development. Finally, a real point of pride, the swimming pool, costing now in excess of £4 million to put right. Originally set to just be boarded up, it now becomes the centrepiece of a restored 3-acre parade ground surrounded by new commercial uses, including a convenience store with a national operator. The East of England Co-op is secured. This is a thoughtful, deliverable and respectful scheme, and it's what the site and this community have long deserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant? You all had lots earlier on. Councillor Wyman, you kick off.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Could you just expand on the point? 14% less space, fewer people, less vehicles. Could you expand on that?
I've got my architect and my technical director with me. Is it okay if I refer back to them? Essentially, the house types have changed, which is how you've had the reduction in floor area. So you've gone from a 4 or 5 bedroom home down to a more attainable 2 or 3 bedroom unit. But happy for you guys to jump in on that.
I can add that. So I'm Matthew Branton, Franklin Ellis Architects, with the master planners and architects for the site. So as James said, if you remember the extant commission, it was more of a range of larger homes, more flatted development. It also had quite a different character in terms of how the parking was delivered. There were a lot of parking courts, less on-plot parking. We've adapted, and also in terms of the aesthetic. It was touched on earlier about the idea of the character areas. We've introduced those key character areas to reflect the different locations around the site. How we approach the water's edge is different to the spine road, is different to the introduction to the site. So you may well be aware of the sort of the crescent approach that we've got in phase 1. So we've carefully tuned layout and the house type and the materials to respond to location and also to the Suffolk aesthetic. It's much more closely wedded to its surroundings than the extant. So on the point of the areas, there is that difference between the 285 and the 303, but with the resetting of the types, we've got many more 2 and 3 bed homes in the affordable end of the spectrum, and the total area has dropped from, I think we had over 36,500 square metres of residential development before. We're now down at about 31,000 because of that reconfiguration of type.
Thank you. Councillor Wyman, you want to finish off?
Thanks, that's a really good answer for that. I think one of the key questions, I think, for all of us really is obviously the spine road. It's been alluded to so many times this morning. The Parish Council suggested that it was available, that the land is purchasable at what seems to be, against the total cost of the project, quite a reasonable price. Why can't we progress this?
I can say categorically, we will take our road to our boundary. I would love the connection to happen. If I say we've been negotiating with Marina for 3 years, that's probably an understatement. We are fully committed to taking it as far as we possibly can. If we could acquire the land at a reasonable cost, we would. And just on Richard's point in terms of the contractor, this is not a cost issue. If it costs double that, I would be happy to pay it. It is not us being difficult, I can assure you.
Thank you. Good answer.
Councillor Maybury.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Thank you for talking to us. My first question, I have three. My first question will be about the 53 affordable homes, I think, that you were talking about. My questions over that are, has that come about fairly recently? Because I asked the officer and the officer didn't know anything about it. Where will they be put on the site? What information can you give us? That's my first question, please.
Can I hold things there just for a moment? Sir, when you said affordable housing, you meant in terms of being on the open market?
It's additionality. So we've had to procure this with an RP, HSPG. We've got a number of schemes going on with them at the moment. And this deal's probably taken 18 months to procure. These will be a mixture of shared ownership and also affordable rent. And they will be on every single phase. So phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3 of the development. And it has been so difficult to get this over the line with an RP. But we've been able to achieve it, and that contract is now exchanged subject to Homes England funding, which is looking extremely favourable at the moment. I actually had an update on that yesterday, which said words to that effect. So we're hoping that we can close this off towards the end of the summer and start delivering those homes immediately.
Thank you. Can I carry on? My other questions?
Have another question?
Thank you. You were talking about the Suffolk vernacular for the houses. Does this mean that you have stuck to the Suffolk design code? Please.
That's too technical for me. I'll have to pass that over to the architect if that's okay.
Suffolk, when we started conversations with the local planning authority, Suffolk Design Code was the first document we looked towards. We did extensive studies of the surroundings. I know Suffolk well, I'm actually born and bred, but work elsewhere now. So we understand the aesthetic. It's beyond just the buildings, the building design and the materials. It's about how the site is laid out, how the plots work. So we invested a lot of early time in that, and that also, I think the critical thing is that coupled with the character studies, the fact that we've got such amazing heritage assets on this site. It's rare for us as architects to have an opportunity to use these grand alignments of mast and Martello Tower. The ability to deliver the scale of the parade ground as a public space is unique in my experience. So it's coupling all of those site generator points with the aesthetic that I hope is already showing some success in the phase 1 development, and we'd love to roll that out over the later phases as well.
Thank you. My third question is, I had a question earlier about the character area fencing or boundaries that you were using. Could you describe those a bit more, and are they recycled, are they natural materials?
Yeah, sure. So I think the diagram that was shown, when we made the submission, we make it quite clear about how the different boundary treatments are made throughout the scheme. So how the private environment of the house and the garden interfaces with the public realm is really important. If that's done successfully, it can make a massive difference to a scheme. So it's particularly important where there's traffic routes, so along the Spine Road, which does have not just the vehicular access, but also pedestrian and that critical cycle route as well. So where we're on those edges, where there's a quite strong public-private interface, we want to protect that, make sure that the privacy is maintained. So that would tend to be the areas where you'd have more brick walls, more of a fixed defensible space. In other areas where we want to encourage access but still define routes, say around the parade ground, we would use those lower timber knee rails and such like. And then when there are areas that need some protection but we want visibility, then we might use the open metal rails and such like. So where those materials are used, both depending on the relationship between public and private really matters. And we kind of pay very close attention to how they're spaced through the development. In terms of the sort of material use, brick walls very much in keeping with the brick selected for the all of the housing stock, and then the timber is used in appropriate locations as well, and also for the dividing of garden spaces within the sort of semi-detached runs.
Thank you. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to ask about the care units, please, and how they actually work. Will they be like warden-aided accommodation as used to be? Or, well, I'll let you explain. Thank you.
So the C2 use class has been tricky. We've gone out to market twice now to try and find an operator, and it's been a challenge. So what we've tried to do is to have as much flexibility on that space to appeal to all the C2 users, whether that is an over 60s product, for example, whether it is on-site, warden controlled, or more extra care. We're just trying to cover every base so we can actually get someone to the market. The big pushback that we're seeing currently is employment. And the only way in which an operator can actually get people to work within that facility is from Ipswich, and that's their reticence at the moment. So we're trying to encourage them that there are people within the peninsula that would work in those facilities. So we just need a bit of flexibility.
Can I just make a point on the it was a bit of a conversation about the areas on the care as well. There's because of the difference in configuration where we've moved from the single building. So the single building was 3 stories high, had combined facilities. Our proposal is to slightly break that scale, so it's a series of individual buildings to offer that flexibility with facility spread. We're looking to reduce scale slightly, so they're kind of in that 2.5 story element where the top floor is provided within the roof. You might remember that from some of the views. So that kind of helps to fetter the scale change between the housing and the retained heritage buildings, which are the largest sort of single buildings on the site. But in splitting those into those 5 individual uses, we have to obviously provide vertical circulation staircases and lifts within each of those blocks. So whereas the actual provision of space for people has only shown a little update, an increase, the actual provision of the buildings has had to increase to account for all of that additional circulation that gets spread across. So that kind of accounts for the change in area.
Thank you. So with the care units, so would they be rented or owned, or would they, so you're looking for someone to actually have living carers there, or people travelling in? Because if they're travelling in from Ipswich, they're going to struggle, as you said, they're going to struggle to get there because of the lack of public transport. So I'm still not really clear. I know you said that you're trying to find a provider, so I suppose it's a bit up in the air.
We're open to all suggestions. Genuinely, we've gone through a full market test at the moment, and we will continue to do so. I can't tell you whether it will be a local operator or a national, or whether those people will be employed from, but the assessment is on the basis that they will be travelling to and from work. I would love, if there is an operator here today, to have a conversation. It's not an easy fix, but I know it's important to the community, which is why we're persevering with it.
Councillor Holt.
Yeah, re the Spine Road, of which we've had many discussions and many comments this morning. Am I right in saying that should this be approved today in the plans that you've set out and that we've seen, any future delivery of the Spine Road will be impossible?
No, I don't think it is. I think if the marina will take it to the end of their boundary and we take it to the end of ours, I think it is possible. I would like it to be possible. I've worked for 3 years to try and make it possible. Unfortunately, it has proved difficult, but not through lack of effort.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Just back to affordable housing. Your registered provider you're working with, and what happens if the deal falls through? What's your fallback position?
So the contract is exchanged now, subject to grant funding. Now that grant funding is ideally placed for a site like Ganges because it's brownfield first, it's got an acute need within the area, and it's very difficult to deliver affordable homes. So we tick all of those key metrics that we need to be able to be eligible for that grant. HSPG are a registered provider with the Homes England funding line. I would be very, very surprised if that didn't go through. And the narrative that we've had for probably the last 6 months, we've held off exchanging that contract till we knew we were sure that the provider could actually get that grant funding. But as you can imagine, with a change of government, there has been an update and a recalibration of some of that Homes England funding available. But we understand now that that is firmly on the agenda, and Ganges ticks all of those boxes.
Thank you. And just a follow-up. So does that mean the deferred profit share payments for affordable housing of 3 million, does that not get paid now you're providing affordable housing in a different way?
No, it sits outside. So this is additionality. So if we make more profit, then hopefully we can provide more affordable housing, whether that's via a contribution or on site.
Okay, I have one more question. This is around the Section 73 application. We've seen today there's been quite a lot of debate on this. Why did you choose to do it this way, not just a regular plain planning application, which is a lot easier for people to get their heads around?
Yeah, I wonder whether this might be more appropriate for the planning officers to speak about. This is quite a standard way that the industry responds to changing plans on extant planning permissions. We don't believe they're fundamental changes, but even if they were, the legal officer and the LPA have made it quite clear today that that is a perfectly sound and legitimate way to operate.
Thank you. I've just not come across this one before or encountered a planning application of that nature, of this nature.
I mean, it hasn't sped the process up. So it wasn't as if we've circumnavigated something. It was the advice that we were given at the time that this was the correct route.
Councillor Mabry.
Thank you. My last question, you'll be very pleased to hear, Chairman. My question is regarding the size of the properties, actually the room sizes. Could you confirm that your properties actually fit the national guide for sizes, please? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's national guidance called NDSS, so the nationally described space standards set bedroom sizes, overall unit sizes, a few key dimensions in terms of passing around beds and things like that, bedroom dimensions. So we meet those standards across the piece. Also worth mentioning on the care provision, I think there was a comment regarding sort of over-provision of space. So the care units themselves are, you may be aware, getting a little bit technical, but there are different standards of the building regs for different use class, for different users. They're within the Part M of the building regs. Part M4, 4.1 is just normal users. We've designed the layout of all of those units to be to the highest standard in terms of space standards. So they allow for future adaptation, they allow for hoists to baths, they allow for much more manoeuvring space around beds, they allow for wheelchair storage. So wherever we can, we're applying absolutely current standards and for the care size to the sort of top end.
Thank you.
No more? Then thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Councillor Derek Davis, who's the ward member. Councillor Davis, you have 5 minutes to address the council. I'm sorry, the committee, I should say, not council.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's been mentioned that this is a very historic site, and for me personally, it's quite an emotional site. It's 120 years this year since the Admiralty moved the training ship ashore to HMS Ganges, the stone frigate, as it were. It was 51 years ago that I trained there. I was a boy sailor, so I know it really well. And it was 10 years ago last month that this was granted permission, and I spoke. I wasn't a councillor then. I became a councillor a few months later, but I spoke in favour of it on behalf of Shotley Parish Council, as Councillor Inch has already indicated they were fully in favour of it. So it's really been in my blood for a long, long time. So you can imagine my delight when the developers decided that they were going to sort the mast out first, because that had been a huge bone of contention for many years, whether it would ever get done. And when the new joint venture was formed, that was the first thing they promised and delivered. And those that came on the site visit, you will realise that you would have seen when you got to the roundabout, and you can see the mast in the distance, and as you go round, you can see the mast from every point. It's a huge marketing bonus, and it's massively important for Shotley. So that was really important. I now live 50 yards from Caledonia Gates, which have been mentioned, and I'm delighted to see that the work is already starting on getting those gates up and running, if you like, looking absolutely back to its best from 100 years ago. So that's a really positive thing. It'll have a really good impact. It won't be used all the time. In fact, hopefully, because it's emergency access only, those bollards will never ever have to come down, and that the gates will be in the pristine condition and the brick supports around it will continue to look good. And saying that, the developers have delivered. They've been very, very good developers. You get virtually no complaints from residents about the first phase that's been built out. They've kept to their words. The design has been good. The space is good. And so in that respect, they're very good. The only one issue that's been of concern is some of the flooding coming down from where the second phase is, and those that have been on the site visit, going down to the marina. But I'm assured that will be sorted out, and I hope that gets sorted out this summer, so therefore that won't be an issue at all. It's been mentioned about the affordable homes. Yep, that's when I read the viability report and said basically they're not going to make, it's going to be a negative equity in terms of profit. Yeah, they're still going to make their 20% profit, but that's what developers do. So that's not a problem. The 20%, in their case, they were hoping to make about 26 million. That's come down to about 22 million. I'm delighted to hear today about the 53 homes from the Housing Association. That's massive. That's really good. And because it obviously helps Babergh. It's not a planning condition. It will be dealt with. And as Mr. Dickens has already indicated, Homes England are very keen to fund these types of projects, these very things. So fingers crossed that goes ahead. And that's a real positive, not just for Shotley, but for the district in general. My other concern has been the fact of should it have been an S73. I'm reassured by the planners and by the legal team that the same test which is being used by objectors is actually on our side, is on Babergh's side. It reaffirms through legal counsel, and I know because I've been involved in for more than a year and so looking at this, that the council has taken real good care in making sure it's legal. Because the last thing we want to do is go to appeal and be on dodgy ground. So I'm confident that it's lawful and that what you're deciding today will be lawful as well. So I'm happy with that. I've mentioned about the affordable homes. The traffic update, well, I've lived in Shotley now for 25 years, and I have to say, there's been no discernible difference in the traffic flow. Anyone that came to the site visits, has been to Shotley, will know that the roads are really, really good compared to a lot of other roads. And it's now a B road. Back in the days when it was Ganges, it was an A road because of all the traffic that did go through the villages to get to Ganges itself. So, and again, it's just anecdotal, I appreciate, but I accept the Suffolk County Council report on the traffic flow.
Councillor Davis, you've had a good 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I must ask you to obey the rules like everyone else did. Thank you. Any questions for the member, the ward member? Councillor Holt.
Councillor Davis, we've spoken about the Spine Road. It's something you didn't comment on necessarily, but what are your opinions of the removal of the Spine Road and its importance to the site, the connectivity to the marina, and obviously we've heard about the bus turning circles, etc. How do you reflect on that being removed from the application?
Yeah, so the first thing is the Spine Road itself has not been removed. That will go all the way down to the marina, and then from the marina side, obviously that's a private road. King Edward Drive is a private road on private property. It hasn't been adopted by Suffolk County Council. I'm actually quite pleased, and I've spoken to quite a lot of the villagers who agree that as long as there's a cycle and footpath going through, linking the two up, that's more than adequate. In terms of the turning circle, I use the bus on a regular basis, and I go to that stop where the turning circle is. It's been used for about 100 years, and as far as I'm aware, there's never been an accident, there's never been a problem, so I don't have any issues about the bus carrying on in the same route that it is. And because of the various ways you can get to it, it's easy for the people on the residents on Barrowmont or the Ganges estate will be able to access that bus route as well. So personally, I don't have any issues about the Spine Road not being connected at this stage. It could be in the future that the two parties come to an agreement along the Suffolk highways, but at the moment, I'm more than content that it's used as a cycle and pathway.
Thank you. Anything more? No? Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. We'll let you speak. Right. And now, everyone else speakers? I will now throw the item open for debate. Who would like to kick off? Councillor Wyman.
Why not? What a sort of difficult application for us to deal with, really. There are quite a few constraints, there's some difficult issues. The thing which hit me more than anything else was the time taken to get from where we were to where we are, the effort that everyone has made, applicants, officers, you know, the community as well to some extent, to get to this point. So the balance for me anyway is that there seems to be a lot of positivity attached to it. Personally, I'd like to think that Shotley could be a destination. Why can't it be a destination like Southwold or Aldborough? I know I'm probably speaking beyond my pay grade there. But why can't it be? Because if Shotley was a destination, we wouldn't have the traffic issues. We wouldn't have the issues potentially around labour to the care. I mean, I completely understand the labour cost issues relating to care. It's very, very difficult. You know, people can't afford to travel because it's expensive, and you know the money just isn't there for people who work in care homes. So on balance, for me, I like it. I think it works. There are issues. I think we've been reassured well this morning that the Section 73 application is lawful, which to me was a major concern or a consideration. And I would be minded to support the application.
Councillor Wyman. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Yeah, this application I think has been a while coming, and when I visited the site I thought it's such a shame it's been left open and undeveloped for that period of time. I was slightly worried about the Spine Road, been a little bit reassured by that, but I don't think it's perfect yet. There were a couple of things that I thought might be nice to include. There was a piece around the police requirements. They talked about alleyways and additional locks and things like that. And it does strike me it's sort of sensible to put in security measures to prevent people from breaking in rather than do the recovery bit afterwards. So I would be interested in putting forward a condition where those points raised in the police comment could be incorporated. I don't know if that is possible. And the other piece was around heat pumps. Was really pleased to see that heat pumps were going in and that Future Home Standard was going to be obeyed, and that we do get a biodiversity net gain uplift even though it's not totally applicable. But could we have a noise assessment once the heat pumps have been installed so we know what the incremental increase is and whether or not that's within limits?
Number one, I think it's the applicant who will answer that last question for you, whether you're capable of doing.
We can run the assessment. If
Noise assessment?
Yeah, noise assessment, we can rerun it.
Do the noise assessment.
Okay.
Okay, and the police?
I think we could possibly do something along the lines of kind of a scheme of security measures to be submitted covering the site to address those comments made by the design and crime officer.
Thank you. That's good from my perspective, but I'd be interested in what other people feel.
Councillor Dowling.
Thank you, Chair. Listen very carefully to proposal objections and the applicant's answers. I'm very glad to hear about the additional improvements. You've just mentioned air source heat pumps. Obviously, that's a very good thing. The provision of affordable housing is a major advantage, which we've just learned about. Also, the provision of a community shop, which was not previously in the plan. So people can walk to it rather than have to drive out of the site. The question of how fundamental the proposed changes are seems to be at the heart of the Section 73 query. It's still a redevelopment for residential purposes of a formerly derelict site. That's the principle of development. The changes that are being proposed are welcome, I would suggest. And all we really need is the owners of that last 50 metres of road down to the marina to agree to have it tarmacked, and then everything's fine. So let's hope that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maybe, Councillor Osborne, because last time I missed him out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I agree with Councillor Davison and Councillor Wyman, and having been on planning for so long, this particular application has been coming backwards and forwards for a long time without any works of real importance being carried out. And now we have a developer that has completed what I consider some of the outstanding issues that have always arisen from this site. The officer, two officers we have here, have done excellently in appreciating what our problems are, and I am really in favour of seeing this completed. It's been a long time, and well done to the developer. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Osborne. Councillor Maybury.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, this is quite a difficult one for me, and I'll explain why. Because yes, it's a brownfield site which should be developed upon. It's what we're being encouraged by national government. It's been standing around for a long time. The caveat to that, the other side, or one of them, is any loss of any iconic or heritage buildings. Now, I know we're keeping some, but how many times have we, as I'm going to suggest, of a generation, been actually wandering around saying, isn't it a shame that that building has been lost? And that is what worries me. The other questions about traffic, I think that's quite naive to think that traffic is not going to increase, especially if it becomes a destination area, because people travel to a destination. The police report also was a bit of an issue for me, but I understand we can put some of that into conditions. I have this fear, being the ward member for Chiltern, where we have Chiltern Woods, and we lost that area of woodland, which was a buffer zone. And what worries me is if we keep saying, oh, well, we're going to talk to the landowners and try and get a deal for the last part of the access road or cycle, pedestrian provision, whatever. If that is not agreed, because the owners will not agree or will not come to the table, then we are in trouble. We had that at Chiltern Woods. It was and is a nightmare. The care home, very personal view, I think it's absolutely ugly. I think it's horrible. I don't agree with care homes being over 2 stories, so a ground floor and a first floor. I think that's dangerous for people who are perhaps bedridden, poor mobility, because they need a lift. And if the lift is not working in an emergency, what happens? So I don't like it at all. And it would be wrong of me not to give my actual description of that. I have asked for the height of buildings, which the officers have not come back to me about. So I'm hoping that will come in a moment when I've finished. But for me, I still cannot agree to this. Thank you very much for the 53 affordable. If my fellow colleagues do pass this, I hope that is a condition that the affordable housing will come in. Don't know how we can do it, but we need that. I appreciate everyone who's come to speak today. For me, it is difficult. I reiterate that Family Connections were working at Ganges over many years ago, and one of them actually fell off the button at the top. The button boy fell off, but survived to tell the tale. And that was many, many years ago. So I appreciate what you're trying to do, but at the moment, I am not persuaded. Thank you.
Just to come in on the heights, so the tallest heritage building is Vincent House, which is 13 metres, so 13, yeah. And then the care units, which are the tallest of the other kind of residential type buildings, they are 9.5 metres.
Councillor Register.
This is an interesting application. I had a great uncle who actually climbed the mast back in many decades ago. I think it's good. I'm concerned about this spine road. I think it looks to me to be necessary for 2 reasons. One, irrespective of whether the bus can turn around in a 3-point turn or whatever it does at the moment, I think a loop would be better, because then you could put bus stops within the development and people wouldn't have to walk 400 metres to a bus stop. And I think that's definitely an improvement which would encourage people to possibly leave their car at home and make less car trips. And that is what we need to be doing in the future to reduce carbon emissions. If it's not possible to have the spine road, then I would ask the developers to make sure that the paths are segregated. There's a cycle path and a footpath. They've got the room to do it. It's clearly obvious from the plan. And to make it this, if you look at LTM 120, read the documents, it will tell you what widths need to be there.
Can I stop you there, Councillor Register, 1 minute? I'll just get the applicant. You have no problems with your request.
Right, okay.
And
it's already
it's
designed to 3 metres already.
Sorry?
It's as designed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
already applied.
And finally, the comments about air source heat pumps. I spoke to the micro energy generation certificate, MCS, and 4 manufacturers at a conference the other week, and I asked them, and they said it's only an issue in listed and conservation areas, with listed buildings and conservation areas, and it's overblown by far too many things. I'll be working separately on this with the portfolio holder and planning officers on my findings. I'm minded to think this is a really good application, notwithstanding my transportation issues. The other thing is, by the way, that between 2010 and 2019, in East Anglia, the Highways Agency calculated that traffic increased 12%. So we can see it's going up. And therefore the traffic studies need to be done outside, in a normal weekday and so forth. I've seen that too many times, but I'm minded to support this application.
Thank you, Councillor Register. Councillor Holt.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification. On page 52, 14.9, top of the page, the off-site highways work and the community cycle path contributions, in a letter dated the 25th of March, those figures have actually gone up. Should those figures be adjusted in our papers to reflect that? I believe there was £7,800 on the highway works and £14,000 on the cycle path. Just if we're going to have accurate figures, then if we can just clarify that those should be different. Should I wait a moment?
Just wait a moment.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is an interesting application. As regards the traffic, I'm hoping that in future public transport may be improved with devolution. We've sort of promised that there'll be more funding and more joined up approach, because quite often with most of the planning applications we seem to look at, it's always an issue that there's not enough public transport, and it's across the board that that's the case. I'm really pleased about 53 affordable homes. That's really good news. And understand that the biodiversity net gain, that the application predated that, but hope that the biodiversity enhancement strategy will include nest boxes for birds, swift bricks, etc. on the buildings, which will be really good. Yes, so thank you everybody for everything. Thank you.
Yes, so the figures that are in the report are correct. There was a letter issued by the Development Contributions Manager on the 10th of April. And the 10th of April stated that in considering the application under reference, they've previously set out up-to-date Section 106 requirements, but they note the viability issues. So at the very least, there should be the existing contributions from the previous Section 106 carried forward, which is what that is in light of the viability.
So that nullifies the previous letter that
Yes.
counted. Right. Thank you. May I speak, Chair? Yeah. Can I carry on?
Yes, carry on.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious this case has a long history and is very complex, and I think everyone here would desire it to come forward and be delivered, and it's such a shame it's taken so long to come forward, and we're still here today changing the plans due to viability, probably due to its time that it's taken to get to this point. Fundamentally, I think the Spine Road is a fundamental change in this application, and I do have issues with the S73 in that it is a fundamental change, but the desire is to get it done and get it over the line without a shadow of a doubt. It's just a shame when you look at the deferred payments which were in the original application that housing development or a development of this size which impacts the community, the community suffers. It probably won't get its early years education. It probably won't get its cycle path extensions. The buzz-about service, I'm not even quite sure if it still exists, but that had a contribution that was going to help the local bus services. The library, bus services in general, healthcare, bus stops, all of these deferred payments, which are community-based, which would help the community, probably won't ever come forward. And it's such a shame because the development as a whole is sizable and it does have an impact on that community. But as I say, the desire to get it over the line is strong. Personally, I won't be supporting this on the grounds of the S73 and the fundamental change, I believe, in the Spine Road, which I think would be a huge asset to the community. There are one or two other things as well, but yeah, I find it's a very difficult one. But over the years, I wanted to see it done, but I can't due to the S73 and that fundamental change of the Spine Road not coming forward.
Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was refrained as a substitute to make...
Can you get a little bit closer to
Sorry?
the mic? Otherwise, then I need to go home and wax my ears.
As a substitute, I was going to refrain from making any comment, but I've got to say, I today, as I'm coming new to it, and I've read all the papers, I've been very impressed with the work that has been done, and especially from the developers. They've been working hard at it for a very long time, and as another councillor from Shotley, Shotley does need all the development it can get because it's often gets very isolated and left, and I shall be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Any more debate? Councillor Wyman, please, first.
Thank you, Chair. Just to go to the point made by Councillor Holt in relation to the support, we do have the fallback position of the deferred profit scheme, payment scheme. So in the event that it becomes more profitable, we have got that fallback position. So that does balance that off to some extent. And in the absence of any other debate, I would like to put forward we accept the officer's recommendation.
So they accept the officer's recommendations with all the caveats that have been added as we pass through. Thank you. Councillor Holt, did you want to make another comment?
It's just that if members are minded to approve, I want to ask the officers read this Spine Road and the applicant's own admission that they would, if possible, like to deliver it. Is there any way that we could put a condition on that if that land was to become available, that we would encourage it to be fulfilled and put in? Is there a way we can keep that going whilst the development is on site? And if negotiations were to deliver that road, could it then be put forward? And would it be put forward under a new application? I'm just trying to get some form of protection, if you like, that the Spine Road, if it could be delivered and the situation changed, could we still deliver it? We're not blocking it through this permission.
No, I don't think we'd be blocking it. I mean, so much of this particular application, there's what happens in a planning sense, and then what happens in the wider, the real world. So, for example, with the affordable housing, but then hearing about separately the additionality that's been secured, the retail, can't direct where that goes to or who that goes to, but we've heard who the retailer will be. And in respect to the Spine Road, strictly speaking from a planning perspective, it's been explained in the report why it's not necessary to make this application acceptable, but there's nothing to prohibit that from coming forward. And indeed, from a connectivity perspective, certainly in terms of soft modes, there is a planning condition that's been proposed that's in the papers that will ensure that there is some sort of strategy that comes forward so far as it's achievable. And again, outside of the planning process, it just simply requires two landowners to get together. And if there's a subsequent application, then great. I mean, you've heard that there's certainly will on the applicant side. There may well be will on the side of the other landowner as well, but you know that will come forward if it comes forward.
Councillor Mabry.
Yes, thank you. To add to what I have already said, and it may be that there is no need, and I failed to say this earlier, that I cannot see in the application any opportunity for further well-being, health and well-being, in the form of allotments. Does Shotley not need any more? That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Councillor Avery. Anybody wants to comment about allotments? I don't think so.
I'm really supportive of allotments, so if there's a way in which we can work with the local community to deliver that, we would do. So yeah, I'm open to suggestion.
Thank you.
But we've actually got them on every other scheme that we deliver, so yeah, it wouldn't be difficult to do it.
I don't think we can put that down as a condition on this particular, right? Okay, fine. We have a proposer, a seconder. Everybody finally spoken? I'm just going to... While you go through and check that we've got, if you'll let me know what's being added.
Yes, it was just a case of just clarifying, Chair, with the proposal and seconder, just in terms of what is being added. We'd certainly got down that there was an additional condition requiring a scheme for the agreement of security measures around the site. There was a question mark about air source heat pumps. In looking at the file, we did have a noise assessment come in with the application that was agreed by the environmental health officer. So I just want to query what we'd be wanting to do with an additional condition, or whether we're simply satisfied that with the information that we've got, there's not going to be an unacceptable amenity impact. And obviously there were general sign-off procedures in place for the installation of heat pumps anyway, as Councillor Register subsequently picked up. So I just wanted to clarify that, whether that's what you're proposing or not, or whether we're just sticking with the security measures condition.
It sounds like you've actually captured it, especially with Councillor Register's comments.
Okay, perfect. So just the single addition then, Chair.
Just a single addition. We're all happy with those? We're doing that. Okay, well, now's your chance to have a vote. And this has been coming back and forth to me for 12 years, so I might be glad to see it go.
Okay, members, I'm just updating that for you now. So that is now in progress.
It's not. Claire, can you check? Oh, yes, here it is.
Councillor Osborne, can I take your vote verbally, please? Can I just take it verbally? Yeah. 4. Thank you. Chair, that's 8 votes for and 2 against. That's carried.
Thank you. 2 against. Resolution is carried. And on that note, I will declare the meeting over. And the next thing I have to announce to you all is that Stephen Stroud, this is his last day with us. No. Thank you, Stephen.
No, thank you, Chair.
And all the support you've given us when we've needed it and when we haven't needed it. Thank you, everyone.